Hello, everybody. I hope you're all travelling well. Welcome back. We are here for Chapter 7, Part 2. Michael, a warm welcome to you.
Well, a warm welcome to you, Jacqui, and a warm welcome, of course, to our listeners. I'm just looking out the window and have been this morning down here at the seaside at Torquay. For listeners, wherever you are around the world, it's a beautiful sunny winter day. Sky's brilliant blue, Jacqui, the sun shining. I've woken up feeling real good. Yesterday was the 4th week since I had my knee surgery. I'm starting to feel very good within myself. I'm hopping around pretty all right.
Excellent.
So life's good. Life's good. And gives me an opportunity to also mention what a pleasure it is for me, Jacqui, and a delight to be sharing these podcasts with my beautiful daughter, Jacqui, and also with our keen seekers of truth, our listeners. It's a real privilege, everyone, to be part of these podcasts. And I'm glad, very glad that many people are listening. And I know if you're listening, well, some of it's got to be soaking in, and you'd be making and wanting to make changes in your life. And that's the whole purpose of the study of this Gita and the teaching. So good luck with it all. And as I say, it's an absolute privilege and an honour for me to be involved in these sessions. All right,
Beautiful.
Jacqui.
I'm glad the sun's out for you, because here in Melbourne it's actually incredibly grey and quite cold. But in terms of the connectivity, it's beautiful. What we get, I've often referenced beautiful messages that come through in the week, either to my phone or on Facebook or through YouTube, and I of course share them with Dad. And there's just this beautiful sense of online community. So we're really thrilled to connect with you in this format and be able to share and discuss. And even though you're not here in real time, it feels nonetheless like there's very much a conversation taking place. So yeah, beautiful to be part of.
And just a little example of that, Jacqui, is that one of the people in my Thursday Gita study group here at Torquay, which is only a small group, but mentioned it to a friend that he'd known for a fair while, and they'd had little discussions here or there. But something sparked up in her recently, and she started to ask him more details and more questions. And he suggested, have a look at my teacher's podcast that he's doing with his daughter. Anyway, and if you're interested, we'll give him a ring and have a chat. Well, the other day, this lady rang. We chatted for about an hour. She was excited as all, hell. And she said, oh, yeah, my friend suggested I look at the podcast. She said, I looked at the first one and I was hooked, basically, she said. And I've binged, and over the last week, I've watched all your podcasts right up to date, and I can't wait for the next one to come out. And she said, can I come and join your group? And she was there.
Beautiful.
She was there on Thursday.
Oh, how
So,
lovely.
these are all aspects, Jacqui, of how when we're operating in truth, all Goethe puts it beautifully. He says, the floodgates of providence open, that means the grace of God. And he says, and all things will flow your way that you never could have imagined. Well, I could never have imagined when you asked me to do this, that this is what I'd be, this is the discussion we're having now. And all the people that have contacted you, and you've told me about some of them, and people who have contacted me. My initial reaction was that I wonder if anyone will ever bother listening. So that's just how the creation works. And it's just another beautiful example for me. I'm constantly not surprised, but just amazed and delighted to just constantly see the universe operating at this in this beautiful way. All right.
Lovely. Well, that's a beautiful lead in for today's session.
Yeah, well, that's the longest lead in I think we've had. So anyway, as I say, hello listeners, and hello Jacqui. Now, before we continue with chapter 7, the second part of the chapter we started last week, Jacqui, I'd just like to show 2 diagrams. I won't spend much time on it, but I want to pick up on the discussion we're having last week that centered around you in your early stages of meditation, when you mentioned that you hadn't had any prior knowledge of that. whereas I was explaining that knowledge is essential, for any of these things. And if you recall, we touched at that point, I discussed the wheels of birth and death, or reincarnations, in other words, many life cycles, and also karma, the aspect of karma in there. So I want to show in a few minutes, or in a minute or two, just 2 diagrams that I think I know will help you and also any of the listeners that might be thinking along the same lines, just to clear up that little aspect. So Jacqui, I understand that the terms and concepts of wheels of birth and death and reincarnation and karma may be very new to many of the listeners, but they're a very significant aspect of this teaching and will need to be understood eventually and accepted by those who are seeking the ultimate truth. I've had people who say, oh, look, I like a lot of what you're saying, but I'm not interested in karma. I'm not interested in life cycles or wheels of birth and death. Well, I say to them, well, that's all right. You don't have to be interested. But it'd be like half your jigsaw puzzle missing when you've put the other half together. It's not going to make sense. It won't be complete. So it is necessary and it will have to be understood. So the first diagram I want to show you, Jacqui, but also not the people who are driving, of course. Don't you look? Is that sort of showing up all right?
We can certainly see the wheel. You're going to have to talk us through the wording because it's
I'm not going to spend
too
much
small.
time. I just want to give a visual interpretation. So at the top here, I got birth, and at the other side of it, I got death. So the person's born, we all are, 8 billion people on the planet, and all these dots are representing all our desires on our computer program. They're what we want to achieve in this life cycle. 60 and 10 years, as it said in the Bible. At about 16, the wise tell us that buddhi, this higher aspect of our being, is fully capable of kicking in. But that doesn't mean everyone uses it or knows about it or is interested in it, but it's there if it's available. And so we continue there through schooling, whatever we're interested in, physical activities, mental activities, thinking about careers, all the things that are here, marriage, all that. When we get to about here, 40, 35, 40, 45, these days it's called, often referred to as midlife crisis for people, but it's much bigger than that. This is where a person invariably will get to in a stage of life, and we've covered this at the start of the Gita, when we're on the battlefield, we're uncertain, we're at crossroads. So there's a bit of reflecting here for the person as to what they've achieved when they came in with their program and what they haven't achieved and why they haven't achieved it and how upset they are that they haven't. And what is it that are they going to keep trying? But they're realizing they're getting older and they haven't got as much energy and, willpower and so on. So it's a time of, you can see the 2 arrows, one going this way and one going that way. Where a person can take stock, and I'd say all of us, me, you, and the listeners, had got to that stage one way or another, and we wanted to, were thinking, all this hasn't given me what I wanted one way or another. Could have given you lots of things, but not, there's still something missing. And so this is where we then, this way, have got an opportunity to do what we're doing now and learn new knowledge and make fundamental changes on our computer programs. All right?
I was going to say, I'm sure for a lot of people listening, if they're of a certain age, i.e. at that stage or beyond, I mean, that is often the entry point for a lot of people into things like yoga or meditation or, spiritual groups or philosophical texts. It's the predominant intake period.
Well, that's what's called when the person wakes up, Jacqui. Whichever circumstance it is, yoga, people taking meditation, just knowing they've got to join a group or something, like this lady that I just mentioned, she's at that stage. Something's missing, and she thought, geez, this sounds like an opportunity for me to get some answers, fill that gap. So not everyone gets to that stage, Jacqui. The majority of people on the planet in this day and age, or this yuga, won't wake up. They'll just continue on with the life cycles, which is the next diagram I'm going to show. But it's a beautiful point you raised, because that includes all of the people who are listening. All right. And so the second diagram, I'm going to have to put my head around this side now, shows a continuous wheels. I've done them as wagon wheels, yeah, but meaning life cycles. One lifetime, born and die, next lifetime, born and die, next lifetime, born and die. This is the current one that I showed just a minute ago, the big one. Okay, so that's our lifetime. And at the end of you can see from these circles here, listeners, or what see them, and you, Jacqui, that there's a residue at the end of each lifetime. That's what's on what I call your USB stick or your computer. So up here, this is the cloud. Yeah, we talk about computer cloud. I know enough about that to know that I can say that. Well, this is each individual's computer cloud of all their past lifetimes, accumulated knowledge, everything they've thought, said and done, and everything that they've changed in those lifetimes. So the point I'm making here, Jacqui, is that in one of these lifetimes here, you accumulated knowledge about meditation and stillness and a desire for it. This lifetime, the main thing for you was that why at an early age you took to it is you wanted to practice that knowledge that you'd accumulated in these lifetimes. Is that making sense to you?
Makes a lot of sense.
Because if it's not making sense to you, it probably won't be making sense to anyone else. But anyway, that's I'll have opportunity to show these sort of diagrams during the course of the remaining podcast, because they'll more and more crop up as karma and reincarnations and cycles of birth and death are introduced into the teaching.
It's so interesting. I'm just thinking it's actually reasonably commonplace that you come across people that wouldn't perhaps necessarily describe themselves as spiritual, and they perhaps haven't done spiritual or philosophical study, but they'll say things about like little kids or little children, like, oh, he's such a wise soul. He's got to have, surely he's been here before. They'll make this reference to sort of past life or accumulated knowledge or a little person that sort of knows more than they seemingly should for their age or their stage of development. So it's curious how, without necessarily understanding the context of some of this more fully, still reference is made to it, which reminds us of that sort of inner knowing that's there within all of us, just waiting to sort of spark or have the opportunity for fruition in some way. And following on from that, it's also interesting when we often come across young people that sort of seem to have been born with like a gift or a talent that from so early on they just have well honed within them. And I think when you show that diagram, it just immediately brings that to mind, that yes, they've probably worked with those sorts of things before. It's why as a little 5 or 6 or 7 or 10-year-old, they've got amazing capability of something well beyond their years here on earth in this life. It starts to make more sense in terms of why they have that gift or that skill at such a young age without perhaps a lot of exposure.
Yes. Yeah, on your comment there, it makes more sense. This is why I say eventually these aspects of the wheels of death, birth and death and karma and that have to be understood. Because if you don't understand them, a lot of these sorts of things that we're discussing just won't make sense. But when we get the knowledge, well, it all makes perfect sense. And it's also beautiful and it's also perfect. Like I've got a young lady in the Thursday group, has been with us now for 3 or so years, a bit over. She started when she was 30, so she's about 33 now. I said to her on the first day she came to the group, instantly could recognise exactly what you were saying about this lady or ladies, saying about children. That I said to her, within a few minutes, I can recognise in you straight away a very, very old soul in a very, very young body. Yeah, you could just hear in the few things she was saying, she already had, and every word she was speaking was full of wisdom that she couldn't have accumulated in this lifetime. And I've had 2 or 3 young blokes that I met many years ago when I first started the cafe in Geelong, and they were sort of just coming out of university, 20, 21, 22 years old, and they were already into it. They were as keen as mustard. Again, you don't do, most of the people I've worked with over 30 years have all been people in their 50s, 60s, 70s. You know, this turning point in life. Very few people kick in at an early age. But the reason they do is, and you know, your example with the meditation is because there's this connection, follow through of previous lifetimes. And we can't do everything in one lifetime, listeners. So you can learn the knowledge in one lifetime, but then you need a couple of lifetimes to practice it. So you'd observe, Jacqui, people who don't know any of the words that we're discussing, but are leading what seem beautiful lives. They're quiet, calm people, don't get overexcited, you know, look after each other, all of those sorts of things, all those qualities. But they can't be doing that unless they've learned learned some of that. It's not just learned behaviour, it's deeper than that. All right?
Lovely.
Yeah. So I'm sure if we do any of these, we're talking about the question and answer sessions, we'll probably get a few questions on that aspect. So I'll finish off on the notes here that the memory came back to support you in that moment. You were drawing on accumulated knowledge from past lifetimes. We don't have to know about them. You just have to understand that that's where it came from. And then when you needed it, as in this lifetime, it was there to get you off to an early start on meditation. And you'd agree what a wonderful gift that's been for you right from that early part of your life. All right, so hopefully that'll give some clarity to it, Jacqui, and to the listeners. So now we continue with part 2 of chapter 7, where Krishna now goes on to explain to Arjuna and to us the two aspects of his being. So we're talking, Krishna's talking, representing himself as Brahman, so God, Brahman, whatever. And he says, I've got two natures. He says, I've got a lower nature called Prakriti. And again, we don't have to learn many Sanskrit words, but we don't have the equivalent to, or we do have the equivalent, but don't understand them in English in the context here. So the Sanskrit word is Prakriti. This is his lower nature. And by that, he's referring to the creation or the whole universe or the cosmos. And we also call it nature, Mother Nature. So in other words, everything that's known to any human being is Prakriti. It's a manifestation. And so this cosmos comprises of 8 basic elements, components, he says to Arjuna. He says there's the 5 universal elements, which I'm sure all of our listeners will be familiar with: ether or space, air, fire, water, and earth. And he says these 3 subtle aspects of mind, and then there's 3 subtle aspects of mind, emotions, and the ego, or the personality of the being. And he says, this is my inferior or lower, constantly changing manifest nature. Yeah, notice the words there, listeners: inferior, constantly changing, lower nature. So we've been talking about the lower self and the higher self, haven't we, Jacqui, on a number of podcasts? Well, we're going to start elaborating on all of those terms in much more detail in these following chapters that we'll be looking at, much more detail. And we need to do that, otherwise we'll just be talking baby talk. We need to sort of start growing up as best we can. I'm sure a lot of people are. So anyway, and then he says, this is distinct from my second superior nature, known as Purusha. So they're the 2 key words in this, and they'll need to be remembered and understood, or I'll suggest it would be good for you to do that, because you could come across them in other material you read or podcasts you hear, and but even just for your own self. Prakriti and Purusha. Purusha is the consciousness itself, the higher source, the source of everything that brings about this lower manifestation creation that I've just been describing. It's my superior nature known as Purusha. Purusha is the life force, or some people would know it as prana, the breath, the life force, but it's more than just the breath. It's the whole life force, the source of consciousness in all beings, and the womb or animator of all life. This mysterious power brings about, sustains, and eventually dissolves the entire creation. That's how powerful it is, Jacqui. Yeah, and I'll refer in 5 minutes or so, summing up the power. And so life itself, says Krishna, originates in this union of nature and spirit. So now we're using nature and spirit to simplify the meanings. Nature being Prakriti, spirit being Purusha. I'm going all right, Jacqui?
Beautiful.
Yeah? And he says the entire universe evolves from these two aspects of me and will dissolve back into me. So this almighty, powerful entity called Brahman or God or the Supreme Being, from itself manifests a whole, as we know it, the whole entire creation. Billions of galaxies and billions of stars and planets and universes and black holes and all sorts of things. And then here in our little universe and planet Earth, 8 billion people, and we've got countries and we've got oceans and we've got the sky and we've got whales and we've got worms and all the rest of it. Everything's a manifestation emanating from this higher source. All right? So I just referred to how powerful it is. Well, I'm just going to sum up now very briefly that this can all be summed up beautifully with this concise statement that indicates this higher source, this Purusha, this spirit. It's referred to as in three words, Jacqui, and I'm sure you and many of our listeners have heard of them. There's the omniscient aspect. That is all-knowing. There's the omnipresent aspect. That means it's all-pervading, everywhere throughout the entire creation. And then there's the omnipotent, the all-powerful. So it's all-knowing, all-pervading, all-powerful. It brings about the creation, it sustains the creation, and it dissolves the creation back into it. It might be a bit airy-fairy, folks, for some of you, especially the new ones. But, you know, start getting your head around it. It's there and it's all beautiful. Don't be frightened of any of this. Just because you don't know it, don't fear it. Embrace it and everything will turn out very well. And this is
I'm
the
just
supreme
wondering, sorry to interrupt there, but I'm just wondering for people if it's useful, and I'm wondering actually whether I'm even on the right track with this. Like even in the last few days, I've seen things so beautiful. Like they're kind of ordinary, but they're so beautiful. Like the other day in my office, you know, it was pouring rain, it was hailing, and somebody said, "Oh my goodness, look at the hailstones hitting the office window." And then a moment later, somebody said, "Oh my goodness, look at that rainbow." And we all kind of looked out the window and the sun was glinting and the dark, stormy skies and just this like wondrous rainbow that captured everybody's attention for a few seconds. I mean, it's of the earth, you know, Mother Nature's gift, but you can't help in that moment but just look and think stunningly beautiful. And if you're a bit open and receptive, it feels like a gift of something else coming through, being portrayed in that way. Would I be right in saying that? Is that somewhat of an example of what you're just explaining?
I'm just about excitement, Jacqui, when you started on this, because listeners, this isn't just me and Jacqui. I'm sure all the listeners will be. I'm just telling you now, at the end of the session, I'll be giving you an exercise. The exercise is to focus on what you observe during the week of Prakriti, nature, and Purusha, the higher consciousness. And I've written little examples of even rain. You're talking about, you know, the hailstones sitting on the glass. Not just look at the rain, but look, and you're giving everyone the answers, Jacqui. You've spoiled the exercise for them.
Well, let's think we're enhancing the exercise.
Oh, it is. You know what I mean. It's perfect. And see how, like, you know, I keep saying to people, we don't rehearse this. We just sign up 5 minutes early, say hello, how have you been? Everything good this week? And I'll say, yeah, my knee's getting better. And we say, okay, let's get on with the podcast. But this is an example, Jacqui and listeners, of that there's a universal one mind. And when we're operating at a very fine vibration, you're already tapping one way or another. It doesn't matter how it happens, into what I've written here as to what the exercise is going to be. And the exercise is going to be to suggest people do exactly what you're doing. Don't just look at a rainbow, but look behind it. Where's that rainbow come from? It wasn't there a second ago. And in a minute, it's going to disappear. So how does it come? How does it disappear? What about why is it always in that semicircular shape? Why are there those different colours? They're always there. Yeah, and it's in every part of the world. If there's a rainbow now in Chile, it'll be showing, people will be saying, oh, look at that beautiful rainbow. It's amazing, isn't it, Jacqui?
It is beautiful and incredible.
Yeah, just as I say, nothing surprises me in this anymore. But it constantly is just so beautiful as to how it all plays out. So this omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent nature of the supreme God Brahman. That's it. That's its nature. Yeah. And those three words, you can't sum it up any more in detail or any more strongly than those three words. Its lower and high nature are manifest in this world, but transcending these two lies the unmanifest reality. And I'll show a diagram, as we go along. I won't bring it up now. That's just the manifestation in this creation. So what you described, Jacqui, so beautifully there and so excitedly and got me all excited is you referred to the hail hitting the glass, looking out through it, and everyone, oohing and ahhing and that. So in the observation is a Prakriti. There's the rainbow, there's the sky, there's the hailstones, there's the glass window. But behind it is Purusha, the awesomeness of it. You're seeing the hailstones trickle down the window, aren't you? Yeah, that's. I'm going to read a bit out of Jack Hawley's book in a few minutes. That's going to elaborate on that, so I won't go into it now. But that's beautiful. All right, I'll continue on.
Yes.
I'm looking at my clock now, so
yes, do take note.
So in the next topic of chapter 7, Krishna, in these chapters, he covers little topics, could be 3 or 4, 5 or 6, that sort of bring a number of slokas together that I can use to sort of go from one topic into the next, if you like. So in the next topic, Krishna declares himself as Brahman, manifesting as the quintessence of all sentient and insentient objects everywhere. And he suggests subtly that one can locate him in one's ardent desire for the supreme. What you're describing is you located him in those hailstones and the rainbow and so on. Yeah. And you'll continue to do that and be in awe until the rainbow, the hailstones, you, consciousness, all merge into one. That's the whole aspect of unity. So I'm just going to read out some fleeting example of his many manifestations. And Jack Hawley, the book you've strongly recommended, and I did. And of course, I recommended Eknatheswaran's 3-volume Gita last week that I hope a few people might have decided to buy. So I didn't make notes, Jacqui. I've just because you list them so beautifully and they're quick and easy to read, and it just gives all the listeners just a pinpoint, bang, bang, bang. These are all manifestations of Purusha, the source behind everything. He says, I'm pure consciousness, Arjuna, the underlying essence and elements of beings. There's no power in the cosmos that does not emanate from me. I'm the innate nature of everything. In pure water, I am the sweet taste and the fluidity. So when you saw those hailstones, water there, but hailstones are just frozen water, aren't they? And they're hitting against, as they melt, they'll just be flowing down. That's the fluidity. So when you're looking at having a drink of water, listeners, in your exercise, don't just say, quickly drink the water. Taste it, feel the sweet taste of it, the freshness of it, the coolness of it. I realise that that's giving you a lot. Without that, you die. You can't live without water. So this is all the behind the scenes aspect of everything we can see as to where it's coming from. How come it's there? How come it's doing what it's doing? He says, I'm the radiance in the sun and the moon. I'm the brilliance in both fire and the sun. Well, if you look in people's eyes, Jacqui, and your own in the mirror, you'll see that there's a light in there. Yeah, that's the light of consciousness in every human being. As soon as the person dies, that light disappears. There's a dullness, a cloudiness in the eye. I've seen a few dead people. I've seen lots of dead people who are walking around, but that's another story.
I was about to say, I mean, I think we
story.
all know that. We meet people with varying degrees of lightness or dullness in their eyes, don't we? Even this past week.
Oh, look, they're bright-eyed and perky.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's all those sort of subtle aspects to it as well. He says, I just want to go on to say, I'm the love in the devotees. I'm the sweetness of charity in the giver. So, you're giving something, but there's a feeling inside you and the other person picks up on that you're kind or you're generous or something like that. These are all the subtle things that I'm asking everyone to start focusing on more. I'm the primordial seed of all entities, the power of discrimination, Buddhi. Yeah, we touched on that earlier on, Jacqui, power of discrimination, Buddhi. The splendor within all resplendent things. So you looked at the splendor of the rainbow. Yeah. Well, it's the consciousness is what provides that splendor. If the consciousness wasn't there, well, the whole rainbow wouldn't be there, let alone the splendor of it. I'm of the strong, I'm their might and their vigor. I'm the power in unselfish desire. I'm the subtle force in good actions. Which puts them in harmony with welfare of humanity, and I'm the innate urge to help others. So if you sometimes feel you want to, there's a need to help others, well, consciousness is behind that need to help others. Everything that I've outlined there. And a couple that I finish off, I just want to expand on a little bit more. And that's the light that now saying the light in the eyes. Well, it's actually also the very center of the human beings. I am this center of your being that's keeping you alive, your life source. And there's a reference also to the sacred word Om, which designates the divine, and I'm the sound of it heard throughout the universe. And I think I mentioned in last week's podcast, did I, Jacqui, or one of the previous ones where in a quiet moment at one of the meetings I was at it very early, there was beating of Indian drums and the heartbeat of the person I was hugging, and everything disappeared, just a beat, and her heartbeat, my heartbeat, and then that connected with the universe, and I heard the heartbeat of the entire universe. So that's the reference to it there. All right.
It's beautiful. I know you've probably got a lot of material, but I just feel to share one thing. And I have, it's probably simplistic at the level that you're used to teaching, but I feel like it's become a bit of a modern trend and a lot of people practice it, and there's depth to it the more you practice it. But it occurs to me it's relevant to the conversation here, which is essentially that of gratitude practice. And I know it's become a little cliched that people are like, oh, find 3 things in your day you're grateful for. Sometimes it can be a little bit trivial and brushed over. But it occurs to me that at a deeper level, that is actually part of what we're speaking about here. I mean, when you said the water, how many of us just automatically throughout the day quickly fill our water glass and chug it down because we're actually thirsty and we just keep going? But if we actually pause long enough to reflect that that is life sustaining, as you say, savor the flavor and the clarity and all of these components, it actually becomes deeply enriching. You can cultivate such a gratefulness for these things that we have and often can just utilize or intake in a blind fashion or an unconscious fashion. But it can be so uplifting to really ponder, our fortunate situation and all of these things that we have access to. It can bring immense amounts of joy when you practice deeply and with purpose.
Well, again, just spot on, Jacqui. And it's not interrupting the flow or anything. It's all part of what we do or what we're doing. See, you touched two words in particular jumped out at me as you were speaking. One is gratitude and one is joy. Now, as we progress on our spiritual journey, as we grow spiritually, all of these things come together. We start off, knowledge and putting it into action, and becoming wiser and all of that. But that just keeps on building and building and building. And then those forces join together and become mighty, greater forces, because they stop being individual and merge. So each one complements and supplements and reinforces the other. Again, your example of that episode in the office at work the other day, with the rainbow and the hailstones and stuff like that, and people would have heard, I have certainly heard, the joy in your voice when you were describing it. And instantly, I picture the joy in that office situation with 5 or 10 people or whatever, and because I've been in that situation as well. Yeah, we all have, and we know what that joy is, and your joy is not any different to my joy. And the reason we get more joyful as we go along is because we understand it all more fully and more clearly and at a greater depth. We're talking about finer stuff now, finer stuff. And with that, correspondingly, comes an increase in gratitude. We become full of gratitude to the Lord for providing this creation, gratitude for yourself of the benefits you've had in your lifetime and in previous lifetimes, just even being born, and the country you're born into. And yeah, sure, we cry at different times, and sure, we get angry at different times, and sure, we haven't got enough money at different times, all of those sorts of things. But that's all part of the battle, isn't it? That's all part of the battle of life. But we keep picking ourselves up, folk. We keep picking ourselves up, and we keep moving on. There's something within us driving us. That's called the seed of truth. Every human being's got it in there. And sooner or later, that seed will want to germinate and will want to grow into its full potential. And its full potential is describing the sort of things we're talking about now. Beauty and greatness and where it comes from and what's behind it and how it's impacting on me and how glad I am. I was lucky, you say, that I am able to be doing this. You said last week, you felt that it was like a gift to you, that meditation. And I said, no, Jacqui, it's not a gift to you. It's a gift you've given yourself. But it's a gift that you can only give yourself via the perfectness of the creation that allows that to take place. So it's all a bit of this and a bit of that, isn't it? But there's just sort of finer aspects to it that need to be understood. Because otherwise we fall into the trap of thinking, oh, well, that was good luck or that was bad luck. And the ego can say, oh, well, that was just good luck and that was bad luck. Whereas you're wanting to tell ego, no, none of this is good luck or bad luck. It's all of my doing. I'm in control here. And if it's what you're calling good luck, well, no, it's because this is a reward for me karmically as to the effort I've put in one way or another, whether it's intellectual or mental or emotional or action-wise or whatever. Does that make sense?
It does.
All right.
Very good.
I'll continue on for a few more minutes. He mentions, and I won't go into it now, but it'll crop up more and more, that this whole creation is what's called Maya. It's an illusion. So he brings it about. I've talked a lot about Krishna, that part of Krishna. We need to come to understand that none of it's real. Our bodies aren't real. Our personalities aren't real. They're all part of this world of Maya. Now, that's a hard concept, I know, for some people to get
I was
their head
about to
around.
say, we're going to have a few people raising their eyebrows at this point. What do you mean it's not real? I can touch it and see it and feel it.
Yeah. Well, keep touching it and keep seeing it, and it's real, and no worries. Eventually, you'll come to an understanding that it's real in one way, but it's not real in another way. Because it's the simple answer to it all, Jacqui, is, and I made reference and stressed it about what's changing and what's not changing. You know, your own body, your mind, thoughts you used to have, thoughts you have now, desires you used to have, desires now, different. You look different as you get older. You change different clothes, different taste in foods or music. Everything's constantly changing. So anything that's constantly changing is regarded in this teaching, folk, as not real. Real means, in its true definition, never changing. Never born, never dies, permanent, constant, omniscient, omnipotent, and all pervading. All right. So I'm sort of going into, big parts, but it also makes reference to the gunas, the three gunas, and I'll have to elaborate on that on another occasion. But they're what are called the three moods or the three energies. We don't have equivalent words in English for this, Jacqui and listeners, but they're beautiful words. They were what enticed me to the School of Philosophy in the very early stages 30 years ago. The advertisement talked about the three universal energies, and I was intrigued. I'm thinking, geez, I haven't heard of three universal energies. They seem bigger than the energy of magnetism or electricity or gravity or something like that. Anyway, you're in for a treat, folk, if you haven't heard of the three gunas when they developed, and there's a whole chapter on it in the Gita later on, but I'm sure some of the listeners might have come across it. So time doesn't permit me to go there. And he finishes off in that chapter talking about. He says there's two types of people in the world. I can group people into two types, two broad groupings. All 8 billion people. Doesn't matter, women or men, young or old, rich or poor, Chinese or Australian or whatever. All people, two groups. One's, he says, are the deluded. The deluded. The other group are the wise. The deluded, I'll quickly read through these, Jacqui, it won't take very long. The deluded, Krishna says, very few people can see through this veil of illusion called Maya that I hold in front of me. So that's what I was saying about the whole world's an illusion, the whole creation. And he says it's like a veil, it's like a cloud, or, different coloured glasses distort what it is we're looking at. We're all familiar with that term of what colour glasses you're wearing. He says if individuals don't even know their own true nature, how can they expect to know the true nature of God or Brahman? So firstly, we've got to sort ourselves out, our lower and high nature. And all this material over the coming, we've got a lot of podcasts for folks, so don't worry, can't do it all in one or two. He says, I'll go on then to explain, like all the writers do, that as soon as we are born, we're led to believe that the world around us is real, in inverted commas. Yeah, this is what you were just referring to, Jacqui. We forget our divine aspect and fall into the pattern of likes and dislikes that give rise to never-ending desires, attachments, and aversions. That's why it makes it all real to us. Every person, all 8 billion people. Ego constantly reinforces this identification of a separate individuality from the higher divine self. Like how much in society talks about the higher divine self. It's all on the lower self, isn't it? Buy this and do this and go there and have a good time and do whatever it is you want to do. Make a lot of money, get famous. And finishes off by saying that Krishna says that without devotion, in other words, waking up and starting on their spiritual growth, he says it's going to be impossible to see one's oneness with God. You won't see the God in you, and you won't see the God itself and the oneness or the unity of those two. And of the wise, Krishna states that those who purify their actions gradually grow less influenced by their own habits and desires and the world of opposites. So we start seeing through these veils of illusions, don't we? You can relate to that, and I'm sure most of our listeners can, all of our listeners. So one step at a time, they overcome their lower self, and by striving for liberation, they free themselves from this delusion and eventually reach the Supreme Brahman. They finally realise the whole, that this whole creation is called the play of Brahman. Sometimes it's known as the play of Leela in the Sanskrit language. They finally realise the whole, this whole play of Brahman, the world, and the individual that lives in that world. So, Jacqui and listeners, that concludes chapter 7 of the Gita. And before I pass to you for final comments, Jacqui, I've made my final comments. I just want to refer to the exercise, and I've already referred to the exercise, right? So here it is in a nutshell, folks. for this week's exercise relates to two natures of Brahman. Remember Prakriti, the creation, the universe, nature. Everything you know, everything you see, everything scientists tell you, that's nature, that's Prakriti. And then there's Purusha, the source of it all, the consciousness, this great entity that's all-knowing, all-powerful, all-pervading. So what I'd like you to do, as often as you can remember during the week, and that was a typical example in your office last week, Jacqui, is I could just put it down to smell the roses. We all know the saying, don't we? You're too busy, you're too rushing around. Slow down, take time to smell the roses. Well, I want you to smell the roses. I want you to look at the moon. I want you to look at a rainbow. I want you to listen to a magpie warbling or hopping around, grabbing a worm or any bird. I want you to look at anything that you can see all around you. And not only just see and listen and feel, oh, that's a magpie warbling. No. Where did that magpie come from? Why is it only magpies that warble? Why aren't they going instead of this beautiful sound? Why do other birds go crows, for example? So to look at focus, folks, as best you can on the manifested reality that you can see, the rainbow or the bird or the rose, and then ask, where's this smell come from in the rose? Where's the colours come from? Why are there white roses and red roses and yellow roses? All right, Jacqui? And why are they different shapes and little buds, and then they open up and then they fall off and the leaves fall off the tree and you've got to prune it and then new leaves grow. You just keep going and going, all right? You think that's enough, Jacqui?
Yes, I'm nearly bursting with excitement. This is my favorite life activity. I'll just share super quickly with you all. One time in our garden when we used to live in the country, we had little jonquils or daffodils. Something was popping up and they were like literally just coming up out of the earth, the new shoots. And I remember just standing there in absolute wonderment, like, oh my goodness, the soil has just been dormant all winter long. And here come these amazing little shoots, and some were more advanced than others, and some had little buds that were kind of about to open. And I just was there in wonderment, taking it all in. And I remember calling my husband and bringing him out to see and showing him, like, look at these sprouting and whatever. He's like, yeah, good. And I'm like, no, not good. Like, really look, like wondrous. He's like, oh, yeah, pretty good. I'm like, no, look again. Like, really look. And then I said, he's like, oh, yeah, good. I'm excited or something. And I said, you don't sound very excited. And he's like, well, let's be honest, Jacqui, no one can be as excited as you about these things. But it was just one of those moments in life, and I have many of them. I love the wondrous nature of the universe, and I seem to have loved it since I was very little. It's just something I don't have to try to do it. It just happens all of the time. But yeah, that's just an example in my life of how these things happen. So yes, I will gladly participate in the homework this week.
And I will add a quickly one or two sentences to that, Jacqui, very, very briefly. But that the example again, and all the listeners heard your excitement and whatever. You can't. No one can pretend those sorts of excitements. They're either there or they're not there. Same as they weren't there for your husband, Dean. And he could see the jonquil, what colour it was, but it didn't excite him. But the point I want to make is follow on to the discussion we had and earlier again today on your experience with your meditation, early in your life. So, and that's the reference to the life cycles. So in those number of life cycles, you weren't only learning about meditation and that, you were learning all of what we're discussing in these podcasts to some degree or other. And so this lifetime, you've come in with lots of background behind you that you're not aware of or not clearly aware of, but I'm sure now you're becoming much more, there's much more clarity coming for you now as to what's the difference between your husband's response and yours. Well, he hasn't got that same background. It's neither good nor bad. I think it's just everyone's doing different things in their lives. But you're already keenly observing and connecting with all that we discussed today, this difference between Purusha and Prakriti, and looking way beyond. He was only looking at Prakriti. Yeah, there's a junk oil. Yeah, it's nice. It's come out of the ground. I understand all that. Just nature. The excitement that you're showing and talking about is looking at it from Purusha aspect, the power behind it all, the source behind it all. All right.
Beautiful.
We better wind it up there,
We better
Jacqui.
wind it up there. We could give examples all day long.
Another lovely session, Jacqui. Another lovely session, folk.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Very wonderful. You say things, there's many things you say so beautifully and so succinct. I hope, well, not I hope, I really trust. There's something in the transmission, I feel. It's not just talking the words and someone's listening or people are listening. I feel like there's times where I feel quite confident that not just for me, that for the listeners, there's like a transmission of knowledge across the platform to people. So anyway, we will leave it there. Thank you for your time and your preparations and your sharing with us each week.
I agree with that entirely, Jacqui. And you might remember after the first, even halfway through the first podcast, I went from sort of a bit of a negative state to instantly having that connection that there's people out there. They were just like as if they're in my groups, and I instantly warmed to them. And every podcast I've done, I'm sure people are picking up on it. I'm overjoyed. I'll give it my best shot. I love the truth, folk. I love passing it on, and I love seeing my daughter Jacqui, and I know other people. We're getting feedback, aren't we, that are saying that they're indicating. And even on a bigger level, I'm picking up on it that's happening as well. So it's all beautiful. It's all perfect. And everyone that's involved in this, me, Jacqui, the listeners, it's all meant to be. Those that aren't, well, they're not ready or not interested, for whatever reason. And it'd only be water off a duck's back if they tried to. But those that are listening and are continuing on, if you've got this far, folk, well, I congratulate you heartily. And I'd be very, very confident that you'll be there on podcast 40. All right.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.